A pivot table is one of the powerful features of Excel. It allows you to summarize a large, detailed dataset, extract the significance data, and finally get fastest reports. So you save much more time. Create pivot table. Our dataset consists of the name of the employees, their salaries, and all the data which we worked already. But I added payment date column as an addition. I've already worked with tables. Our data is in a table form. Now I want to see how many locals and how many expats do we have. For this purpose, as we learn, we can use COUNTIF formula separately. We can select the range, or we can type the table name first, then bracket, and the name of the header as range, close bracket. This is how we can use table columns in formulas out of table range. Now, instead of typing a bunch of formulas each time and also wasting time, we can easily tide our works over with pivot tables. For having a pivot table, if you've already have table like what I have, press on a cell of table, go to Design tab, in Tools, select Summarize with Pivot Table. If we have a table and want to change it to Pivot one, easily type the table name. If we don't have a table or want to modify a range, simply select a range from the worksheet. Here, because I've already had a table, just type the table name. Excel will automatically recognize it. If you want to have a pivot table for an outsourced data, not from this workbook, select the second option. If you want to have a pivot table in this current worksheet, select the second option with a location. This location can be just a cell. So, pivot table will add it to the selected address. Generally, the pivot table is in a new sheet, so I select New Worksheet and OK. Pivot table. In a new worksheet, pivot table is created. Pivot table has 4 components: filters, columns, rows, values. And pivot table fields are the headers of our table. We can change the order by clicking on this gear and select any order you want. Column and row components are the slicers of the fields. What I mean slicers? If I want to see the name of employees in columns, not in rows, the column component gets name column's contents and slice them and show in a column. If I drag months and drop it in column section, this happens. What do you think if I drag name and drop it in row section? Yes, the contents of the name column are sliced and organized in rows. By selecting the field and dragging out of any content, it is removed. Or easily uncheck its mark from field section. This is how pivot table works: dragging and dropping. The thing you must be familiar with is knowing to drag which field and drop it into which content. Now we are going to show you how to be proficient in dragging and dropping. Get reports from pivot tables. remember the example at the beginning of this lesson about seeing how many locals and how many expats do we have? We solve with COUNTIF. Now I want to make a magic without using any formulas. Solve it with pivot table. Let's first analyze the question. How many locals and how many expats do we have? Locals and expats are in origin column. What do we want to see as a result? The number of each content in origin column. The result always sits in value. I drag origin and drop it in values. Here, all origins are shown. I have to slice the origin contents in row. For slicing, we have to drop origin in column or row. I want to see the contents of origin in rows, not column. So drag origin and drop it in rows. The result is what we have achieved by COUNTIF formula. So judge now, formulas or dragging and dropping. Which one is the easiest? Second example of pivot table. Now I want to see how many locals and how many expats do we have in August and September. What is its formula? COUNTIFs? That's right, but I don't want to waste my time with formulas. Let's back to pivot table. We did the first step previously. The second step is August and September. These are the months contents. So drag months and drop in columns. All months are shown. I just want to see August and September. So from column labels, just select August and September. It shows the result without thinking too much on formulas. Important note. A very important note here is that if you add any information into the range, for example in our table, I changed Samantha's origin to just L as the acronym of the local. It is not added in pivot table. It needs refresh to read the new information. Right-click in the pivot table and select refresh. L is added. Be careful, pivot table is sensitive to spaces also. I back to the table and for the last expat, I add one space. In my pivot table, I right-click and refresh. As you see, one expat is added. Just to stick in your mind these little but important notes. Don't forget to refresh the pivot table. If you don't, the actions which you defined in table not work properly. So you need to remove and add them again. Third example of pivot table. Now let's see the sum of increment with their origins. What is value here? Total amount of increment is value, and origins should be sliced with row. Drag origin into row and drag increment into value. We need sum of the increment of each origin. It is shown, but it is count of the increment. Just click on count of increment, select value field settings. The predefined options are ordered. The most important calculations are shown. I need sum. Select it, then OK. This is what we want. So from value field settings, we can select any calculations. For example, I want to see maximum increment of each origin. Just change the sum into max. That's it. Filter. Now let's filter the location. When a field is in filters, A separate place is dedicated to filter. It is not into the table range. I want to see some of the increment according to the origin, but with location filter. Click on this filter icon. Select Site. So the expats inside get nothing as increment, but the local ones get $6,980. I change the filter to the central office. Some of increments are changed according to the filter. Or if you want to see all, just select all from filter.